Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Enough to Keep Going podcast. This is episode 289 for the week of May 7th. Whew, made it into May, and maybe that's a good thing. We'll see what these May releases, see if they come in a little better state than the last 2 weeks of releases. But we'll talk about some of those this week in terms of games coming in hot, needing some day one patches. But I am not alone to do this. I am your host, DBQ Hams. Joining me tonight, Towmaster99. How are you, Tow?
I'm doing well. Thank you very much.
I could see your face when I said games needing some patches. So we will see about that. And running the boards, as always, Game Logic. Thank you, Game Logic, for keeping us moving forward.
Yeah, man. No problem.
And now that you're on the mic, I'm going to turn it right back over to you, because last week we were talking about your initial impressions of Jedi Survivor. But since we got through May 4th and a little bit of Star Wars, I actually saw somebody walking around my campus in a nice Jedi Padawan robe on May 4th, which, you know, I appreciate his commitment to the day, but it had to be pretty hot. So, but you are playing Jedi Survivor on the PS5. Last week you were talking about kind of appreciating it, but maybe not feeling as invested in it as you might have been. So I'm curious, now that you've, in theory, had some more time to play around with it, if the narrative piece has pulled you in, or if you were enjoying the combat, maybe not so much the traversal. Is that still the case? Where are your thoughts after another week with the game?
Well, I think the main thing is just a correction, maybe a couple corrections from last week. I think one of the things that I mentioned was how the meditation points, there's not like any type of vertical indication off the surface for you to kind of be able to see, where that meditation point is. That's actually was not correct. The problem is I think on Coruscant, there's just some areas that you may go into that may have some weird lighting or the background color or whatever, where you can't, I couldn't see the vertical spire. Talked to Brap. You guys remember he was a guest on the show. Once he mentioned the same thing, that there were just one or two meditation points on Coruscant that he also just kind of bypassed. And so when you go to Kobo, that problem is really alleviated. There are lots of points on Kobo where you could just look out for vast numbers of miles across the landscape, and you can definitely see the vertical spires. And in fact, they're populated kind of across the horizon, and you can actually navigate to them. You may drop down a point in elevation and then not be able to see one that was maybe elevated before, but by and large, you can see them and navigate to them. So they break out a lot more. The pacing definitely improves once you get to Kobo. I kind of mentioned on Coruscant.
And Kobo becomes kind of like your hub planet then once you get there?
That's what I understand. People who have completed the game, talk about how they were apparently, there's not kind of the spacefaring part of it, which again, that's not a gameplay experience comment. It's more of a, man, that's what I really enjoy about, space games and space exploration. We talk a lot about what the expectations are of Starfield, and, there was a lot of Sturm and Drang about the 1,000 planets. And I'm like, for those people who mention that, I kind of you really kind of have to understand what a space exploration game is and what the expectations are for its content, versus something that's simply a space RPG, right? So, 1,000 planets is exactly the type of thing that I want. An ability to go out and kind of go, into the black and kind of chart your own course. Again, akin to a Star Citizen. But yeah, apparently you stay ensconced on Kobo is the expectation. But like I said, traversal seems to become a lot better on Kobo than it was on Coruscant. Like I said, the pacing becomes a lot better. You're given a lot more provenance. You're able to kind of go out and chart your own path. It's it's akin to kind of a God of War kind of open world, I think. Maybe a little bit above that. It's not quite. I don't feel because you can choose to go in any direction you want to go into, but every pathway isn't necessarily open. So it falls a little short of kind of Destiny 2, where in Destiny 2, like by the vast majority of the landscape is open for you to go in whatever direction you want. You're typically funneled toward an objective, but you could generally go. There's not a ton of instances where you're going to come across like just a wall or just a point of impasse, unless you're playing like a patrol and you haven't played through like the campaign, and the campaign is the thing that reveals that pathway. So it falls a little bit short of kind of open world, but by and large that open world feeling is there. When I entered kind of the initial, I forget what the initial township is called, that is kind of your base camp. I have a way that I tend to navigate any level in a video game. I won't say exactly what it is because that will kind of create a spoiler, but I entered the town and I followed that typical pattern. I didn't follow the little Jedi pip that told me where my objective was, and because I was following that pattern, I wound up encountering the Rancor, probably way early in the game than I was supposed to, and I defeated the Rancor. So that's just kind of an instance of kind of the providence that you're given to kind of chart your own path and go your own way, which I appreciate. That's what I want in a game.
Does a Rancor have a level to it, or is it just simply it is a gate because you would need to have additional skill sets that you may not have at that point in the game?
I don't know. So I don't know if I would have encountered the Rancor later, if he would have been harder to defeat. I just don't know. I had to. I mean, I'm not that great at kind of anything that is remotely like a Souls-like game, and so I had to fight the Rancor like 15 or 16 times, before I defeated it. But I was able to choose, kind of choose your own adventure and follow that pathway, and there was nothing that stopped me from doing it. There was nothing that said, oh no, turn back, you're not the right level or whatever. So, I appreciated that. And it was a good time. It was nice to get that kind of tucked under my belt before I proceeded in the rest of the game to kind of boost my confidence. There's some weird game-isms that are just kind of left on the surface in a way that I kind of feel was a little less than what I'd expect from this game and Vince Zampella and the Respawn team, and just
so game-isms just in terms of like transparency of game mechanics and like push triangle type of thing, or
in terms of unlocks and pickups, like you get like encountering a random box of the landscape and there being a part in there that you can use for your little droid. That I understand. Picking up pieces of clothing that you can use as like part of Cal's outfitting seems a little weird, especially when sometimes it's like old clothing for an old costume that you had from the first game, things like that. And maybe there aren't like severe consequences of that, but I just felt like it was kind of weird, getting your costume and weapon unlocks that way. But it's fine. Combat definitely picks up. Boss battles are good. Like cutscenes are less frequent. And one thing that I should praise the game for, because I talked about God of War Ragnarok and how in 2023, great game, but just look, you throw a QuickTime event at me, which has been the bane of my existence for a very long time. In 2023, I'm just gonna note it as a point of criticism. And there are no QuickTime events, at least not any that I've encountered. So you can go in, use your powers, approach encounters, slightly different ways. I will say, one advantage of the shortcuts that I have found is that when you get killed and you respawn, you are sometimes able to take those shortcuts to proceed on a much more direct path towards a given objective. if you respawn back far enough. On Coruscant, your respawn points tend to not be that far away, so the utility of shortcuts don't really break themselves out in that manner, but they do start to break themselves out that way on Kobo. So I'm having a good time. I've taken a break from the game. I'll go back to it, but things I still fall off on. I still don't necessarily feel the most Jedi that I've ever felt in a Jedi game. Again, being old school and having played, Jedi Knight, Jedi Academy, and things like that. But and still some problems with like the physics. It's sort of the clunkiness, but I feel like maybe that gets better as you get a little more immersed. My last note on performance: the performance stuff is still there. I was even doing game capture through an external capture card, and so I was down at 1080p, and I was still seeing stutters and chugs. Again, same place, mostly when I would pan the camera around. So in a way that I felt like was there and like would bug you, particularly if you take the time to think, great Scott, I paid $70 for this game and this feels like a PlayStation 4 game. That'll get you. But by and large, when you're playing, that doesn't necessarily bother you or bug you as much. I think I'm more bugged by the fact that the textures for the graphics just feel, like I said, like I think the comment I made on Twitter was like, I don't see a lot of point in running in quality mode at all. You may as well just run in performance mode because it's not like the visuals are that much of a step down because they're not.
That's kind of what I heard online as well, right?
Yeah.
Like, given the performance, just stick with performance because the graphical is not necessarily worth it.
Yep. Yep.
All right. Thanks, Game Logic. So that was our update from last week in terms of a new game. But this week we had the release of Bethesda's Arcane Studios Redfall. And Tao, you had a nice hot take in the middle of the week about actually enjoying the game that is getting a lot of negative press, so much so that Phil Spencer had to come out and kind of acknowledge on an Xbox podcast in terms of, you may not have been in the state that we had hoped for in terms of launch. So how much have you been playing Redfall? What take us through, like some of your characters that you're playing? Are you playing PC? Are you playing it on Xbox? Have you played solo? Have you played it with any co-op?
Yeah, I haven't played any co-op yet. That's the only thing I haven't done. Just solo so far. And as far as I think I remember, as co-op is pretty much just drop in and out. You can, have people just come in and out. It
is dropping in and out, but then the big kind of knock against it this week has been that with co-op, only the host campaign, right? Only the host makes progress toward the campaign, and so if you're dropping it out, you are playing, but when you go back to your own game, you have to re-unlock anything that you have accomplished up to that point.
Yeah. I think just story-wise, I think I read somewhere that you get your inventory that you got. You still have your inventory. Like if you pick up guns and stuff, whatever, I think you still do have that. So I guess that's something. But yeah, unfortunately with the story, that's kind of like I had been playing on and off Dying Light 2. That's kind of the same thing, which kind of stinks, but kind of found out the hard way because I was playing with my friend, and then I go back. I think I initially started the game, and then we went back, and he was doing it, and then we were like, "Well, we've already done this. Like, what's going on?" And like, "Oh, then we figured it out." But it's kind of be the same thing. But I've been playing. So, like I said, just solo. I played initially, a couple times on just xCloud on my Xbox One X. And then I also have it on PC. So I kind of like the first half of the week I played it on, or first half of the time that it came out. The first couple days I played on xCloud. And then
how's it running on xCloud?
It's been fine. I haven't had any issues or anything. There's technical issues, supposedly, but I haven't on PC or xCloud. I didn't run into anything. Now maybe they fixed like the initial stuff that was happening. Obviously, there's the whole 30 frames per second on Xbox, so that's obviously not going to change, at least not right now, until they patch that in. But PC, so I did have one issue initially when I first started the game where everything was just dragging. Like I could barely move. I was like, what's going on? And so I restarted a machine because I kind of just had a machine on for a while, and I just put it on hibernate and stuff. But And then that still wasn't doing it. So I was like, oh, it just must be the settings. So I had to go into the settings to turn off like anti-analyzing and the VSync. And I think that was it because it put everything else to medium. So I was like, oh, let me just change those two things. And as soon as I turned those off, boom, it came, everything was running smoothly. So that was kind of a quirky thing there. But once that I did that, it was fine. I got into games and I haven't seen any other kind of, weird glitches or anything like that. Just playing through the game. And I know everybody was kind of thinking, this was more Left 4 Dead or Back 4 Blood, but it's kind of more Borderlands to me. And I've heard some people say also, not Fallout, what's the Far Cry? Kind of the later Far Cries, I guess, because there's like kind of like camps, I guess you kind of clear out and stuff like that. But I haven't played a Far Cry since 2, I think. So it's been a long time since I played a Far Cry. So I'm assuming that's what it's like. But
and you have like rarity on your guns and other things, right? You go through. There's some loot aspect to this.
Yeah, so you find the different guns when you're playing and defeat certain enemies, or sometimes in different encampments and stuff. Just kind of looting through the chests that you find and everywhere. So. Yeah, it's kind of everywhere. But I mean, some of the things other than the technical issues, some of the things I saw in reviews were, it's kind of, kind of a bland world, which, there's nothing going on. I mean, not to give anything away, but you're on an island where there's like a vampire takeover. So it's like, you're not going to have like people and animals running around everywhere, doing stuff. I mean, maybe you could have, and you have, you're going to missions here and there, obviously. You have to go through the storyline. But going to those missions, there's other people and vampires that you run into. It's not just like you go into this mission and there's nothing going on like anywhere in between there. There is, other like groups of soldiers or vampires and stuff like roaming around, so you can kind of take them on. There's some houses that you can go into, obviously not all of them. I don't think I've ever seen a video game where you can go into every house that's on a block or in the world, but you can go into there and just kind of clear them out, and there might be a story thing that goes that you pick up in there too, like a side quest. So that's fine. But
what's the navigation in that? Like, are those waypointed in any way that which houses to go in, or is it kind of just hit or miss as you explore?
No, that's just hit or miss. There are some icons that kind of pop up on the map, but it's not like. And I know there's kind of some of you guys have, or I think Game Logic specifically. Sometimes there's like too much going on, like you kind of get distracted, and it's kind of annoying. But I haven't seen that yet. At least I've played about maybe 4.5 hours altogether. My whole playtime. And there's only like a few icons that I've seen, like your safe house. I think that all the safe houses that you unlock will pop up there eventually. Your main like hub place that you start off in, is on there. And then there's just a couple other things. So it's not overwhelming, at least not right now. But other than that, you put a waypoint down if you want to on a mission. It doesn't automatically throw it on there for you, so you have to go into the map and select it. So that's kind of nice, I guess. But yeah, I mean, it's. To me, it's just kind of like Borderlands, more or less. You're just kind of doing missions here and there. You're traversing this open world, and there's a mini boss that I actually just beat to clear out a neighborhood of the vampires. So that's kind of like Borderlands, where they have the bosses and stuff. So it's not doing anything revolutionary, and maybe just because I kind of stopped playing the Borderlands series, then maybe that's why I'm liking this so much, because you got the gun. They don't do like the ammo, at least not right now, as far as I could tell. You do pick up ammo, but there's not like special ammo, like fire ammo or freeze ammo, stuff like that. It's just like regular stuff, shotgun, rifles, and stuff like that. Stakes, obviously, because you have stakes weapons since you're fighting vampires. But I don't know. It's just kind of like dumb shooting fun. It's nothing I have to think about a lot. It's just kind of going through there, clearing out areas, and AI is pretty much terrible. I mean, that's been said in I think most of the reviews, and it pretty much is. The human
in terms of like detection, or in terms of like
just like they just, as soon as they see you or they know you're there, they just kind of turn and shoot, and they most of the time they just stand there. Like they'll maybe follow you sometimes, like when you run away. But otherwise, they're kind of dumb. The vampires are a little bit better. They'll kind of follow you a lot more, and they have not really a teleport. It's more like kind of like a super dash, like fast move that they do. It kind of gets them across the screen like really quick. So that's I mean, I'll be shooting somebody, and all of a sudden he flip backs behind me, and I have to either run or try to turn around and get him. But it's nothing, like I said, it's nothing I haven't seen before or anything like that. But like I said, since I think because I haven't played Borderlands, it's basically Borderlands, in such a long time, that I think that's why I'm enjoying this, and it's just something that I hadn't. I got off of Destiny a long time ago too. Every once in a while, maybe I'll pick it up, but and there's been, I think, other games too that were, it's kind of a looter shooter. I haven't really played any of those though, so I think I'm just kind of enjoying this kind of type of game. Another criticism is which I can see, is when they're telling the story for the cutscenes, it's just like it's not even an animation. It's just kind of like a static screen where you kind of see like the people in a little, it's almost a flip to like a different scene, but it's always like a static picture. I mean, I can kind of see that. It's kind of
like a comic book page still. Type of thing, or?
kind of it's like, come on, it's like a big game. It's, you can have some kind of animation at least.
I heard somebody describe it kind of a placeholder, right? Like it feels like
like a storyboard. That's what I was trying to think of. It was like a storyboard that just kind of like, all right, well, we'll just throw that in there, and they'll be happy with it. Which, I mean, people complain that when there is cutscenes, and now people are complaining that the cutscene is not good enough. So it's like, all right. I mean, I get it. Like, I've said this in the past too. Like, I enjoy cutscenes, during games, especially a game like this, because it's so much action going on around. It's kind of nice just kind of sit there and watch a little something. But I mean, it is what it is. But I've only been playing the one character, and I can't remember his name right now. It's kind of like the techie guy. He has kind of like an electric spear that you can throw out, kind of shocks people around him. And then I just got another ability where he can like kind of, it's almost like Wraith's ability in Titanfall, not Titanfall. What's the other game? Can't remember. The battle royale game from Respawn.
Oh, yeah, Apex Legend.
Apex Legends, where she kind of like set a teleport area, and then you go back. You can, if you go off somewhere, you can teleport back to it. So, it's kind of like that. So it's kind of cool. And then I think there's one more ability. I believe I unlock. Maybe it's like an ultimate or something, but I haven't got to that yet. So only 4 hours in, and I've already got like kind of 2 of the abilities, and and then there's obviously there's a skill tree for those and other abilities within your.
Is that skill tree pretty extensive, or do you feel like you're?
It's pretty decent. Yeah, I mean, it's not like a Skyrim or anything like that, but I mean, it's there. There's multiple layers in it. At least I'd say at least 5 or 6 deep or so for each. There's like you get the weapons one and the healing one and movement and stuff. It's like broken down to different categories. So, but yeah, it's nothing super complicated, but it's there. So. But other than that, like I said, yeah, I'm enjoying. I'd like to try out the multiplayer, the co-op, see how that goes at some point. But for now,
yeah, I've got it downloaded. I just haven't had a chance to play around with it. So
cool.
Definitely try to connect before next week's show. See how that plays out.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm a fan of a looter shooter. Right, Borderlands, Destiny, Division, Gunfire Reborn. I think that genre for me is there's a satisfaction in the shoot things, numbers go up, colors, that's there's a Skinner box in there for me that works out okay. I feeling, I am curious listening to so many people talk about this game. Like, do you feel like one of the comments I've heard is, because this is a full launch, sale game at $70 versus something that is, Grounded, that came out kind of in early access and then did a full launch, or Sea of Thieves, does it feel? You've played Sea of Thieves, you've played Grounded, does it feel as kind of robust as a full-fledged release game, or does it feel kind of thin and still kind of in a developmental phase?
I wouldn't say it's still in a developmental phase, but I can see where people would kind of cringe at the price tag, just because it's, like I said, it's nothing like we haven't seen before. So, and graphically, that's one of the things too. Is I would say for myself personally, is the art style that they used. I'm not really keen on it. Like that's probably one of the negatives I'll give it for sure. Just personally, like it kind of reminds me of Sea of Thieves actually, a little bit more like they're trying that Sea of Thieves style, but trying to be a little bit more realistic. Excuse me. But they're not just quite there, and it's just I never liked kind of the Sea of Thieves art style either, so that's why I kind of like But I mean, the gameplay's fun, but in itself. And then the one other thing I'll say that's good about the game is the sound. Sound quality is like really good with the weapons and the vampires, and it almost kind of reminds me of Warzone, like the original one, because there's always something going on in the background. There's birds. Oh, I said there's no animals, but there are birds. There's birds. There's like you can hear like shooting and stuff in the background, and people getting attacked. It kind of reminds me of Dying Light too. It's kind of like that, where the zombies are attacking something like far off in the distance. It's just noise though. It's not like part of the game. So sound quality is good. The sound is good. The audio is good. But yeah, otherwise, like I said, there's obviously people have other issues with it.
Game Logic, any comments? Like you're winding up for a comment.
Trying to proceed very cautiously. My comment is maybe less about the game, as a standalone, speed bump on the road that is Xbox. I will say, the events of this generation, culminating for me in the release of Redfall, have resulted in having the same impact on me that the Red Ring of Death did in Generation 6. And after
that's pretty significant, because that was like you set Xbox down for a side there.
I did, and I have done the same now. I just feel like there's...
So have you tried Redfall, or is it the kind of state that Redfall, or the value proposition or the lack thereof, that kind of has created this decision?
I have not. And as you guys know, you guys have been gaming with me and podcasting with me for years. I don't feel obligated to try out games that don't, meet a certain threshold. Like I have other things that I need to do. And I'm also not, and we've all been in Game Pass. I think I was the last one to onboard in 2019. And you guys know that I also don't carry an obligation to try out a game simply because it exists in Game Pass. And so this, the release of the game and how Xbox got here, combined with just this year, things like they didn't make the 12-month plan, right? Which is a statement from Phil Spencer himself. I didn't make that up, right? He says they didn't deliver on the 12-month plan. Starfield, slipping twice now, and in particular, a franchise that's very near and dear to my heart, Forza Motorsport, right now doesn't have a release date, and it was missing at the beginning of the generation, and they said it was in the 12-month plan, and they skated by and didn't address it in January, as if we forgot that they said it was supposed to be here in 12 months, which to me is just like, that's... I've mentioned on a couple of places other where that to me is hitting the point of like customer disrespect. Like when you talk to me and behave as if I've forgotten what you told me last time, that brings a very acidic reaction to me when it happens in person. And so I just, at this point, I feel like there's things they're trying to figure out that they still haven't figured out. You guys also know my background. You know that I come from a systems engineering, software engineering background, which is, those things are literally the study of processes involved in engineering products. And so I wrote a very, kind of detailed write-up on Twitter, and just the notion that after 6 years, 5-6 years of acquisitions, that again, going back to the Spencer interview, that the comment is that they need to revisit their internal processes. That's dauntingly concerning to me with 23 studios. I mean the thing that one of the
and so let me can I jump in there and the process piece, because I don't disagree with you. I mean, in that aspect of, I guess my question is from your perspective, why is Redfall the tipping point for those processes from Spencer's piece, right? Like, we've seen so many other games kind of stumble out of the gates or, get delayed and then not necessarily have the ability to meet a roadmap that they put out, or that we've seen things announced and have never been revisited yet. It's potential that we get a blockbuster of assigned to studios without a lot of product. And so there's been a number of rumblings in terms of kind of whether it's the process, whether it's internal management, whether, is resource allocation, but those studios that they've spent time purchasing have seemed to have struggled in producing.
Yeah, and not necessarily in every case. Like, Obsidian is a great studio, and my comment has always been, I think maybe the key pickup that they've made. I was also very high,
and those were small. They were less than AAA type of releases too, right? Grounded and Pediment are smaller scoped, which seem to be successful.
And that's an up and down thing, right? For me, in terms of then you back out, and so there's a system engineering, software engineering process piece of it, but then there's the other side of the house that I live on. Having made the transition from engineering to program management to profit and loss leadership. Then I look at it from a portfolio management perspective, right? And while grounded in Pentiment, and I understand what Spencer says about wanting to protect the creative freedom and entertain and support the creative direction that teams want to make, which is a very software development oriented perspective. From a portfolio management perspective, I go, I don't know that if it's me, I don't know that I look at grounded in Pentiment and say that's what I need right now, right? Those aren't things that move the needle. In terms of trying to compete, and then I levy that against like the Satya Nadella comment from last year, which is if we want Sony, if you want competition, then let us compete. I'm like, okay, but if you're trying to compete, are you trying to compete with grounded in Pentiment? Those two things don't seem to really balance themselves out very well. So the reason why is that the tipping point? As in all things, with systems engineering, software engineering, program management, I mean, there's, I don't have a definitive, my criteria was 10 mistakes and the 10th mistake, then I'm gone. It's rough feel. And just my feeling from the things that I heard, there were some positive things that not necessarily positive. There were some things that I heard that I felt in Phil Spencer's interview that I felt were things that I don't want to say that only I heard, but things that I heard from the perspective of being somebody who has to frequently engage with the CEO, and then also kind of transmit for myself, right, this notion of kind of visionary strategy, right, and then extracting out of that, okay, what the heck does that mean I'm supposed to do, right? I mean, and then mold that into technical direction and implementation. There were some things that I heard from that interview that made me say, okay, no, this is what they're doing, right? The whole reason of we can't just build great games and sell more consoles is because what I heard was that their future is not selling 35 million Xboxes, right? Their future is, I need to sell some number of Xboxes, get some number of customers to the cloud, get some number of customers playing on handheld mobile PCs, and full-blown PCs, and get some number of customers playing on mobile. And when I have all of those citizens in a new nation state of gaming, I need all four of those to participate in this unified gaming fabric and play in that sandbox socially, be able to play multiplayer. And I need the person who's playing in cloud to not face a person playing on metal and be at a disadvantage, right? And particularly that last thing that I said, that is not game development modernization. That is game development transformation. the technologies that are necessary to make that thing a reality don't exist today, or at least they're not ready. And paving that road is a challenge. Arguably, maybe only Microsoft can meet, right, with a $2 trillion war chest. But it's going to take a long time to get there. And while I said that's positive, look, if I were an engineer working at Microsoft, that's absolutely what I would want to work on. As a gamer looking to play stuff now, that's I don't know that they're certainly not going to get there this year. I don't know that that's a this generation thing. That seems to me like a point of convergence that they hit at the launch of the next generation. So the positive things that the engineer in me who wants to go off and build the flux capacitor heard, right, merging with you need to visit your internal processes after 5 or 6 years. Okay, like those two things hit the convergence point for me. I was like, I think I need to tap out and just wait, right, for them. I mean, look, at the start of the next generation, I may come right back. I was there, at the start of the Xbox One, even though I was, from a podcasting and blogging perspective, I was saying anybody who got burned by the red ring of death should just stay out of the Xbox pool for a year until we see if this Xbox One thing, is fine. I didn't pay attention to my own advice. I bought an Xbox One as soon as I possibly could.
It's new hardware, right?
Right,
you can't not buy it.
Yeah, but I just had to tap out for a little bit. Yeah.
I appreciate that perspective because I think from our conversation last week in terms of, the UK CMA decision in terms of cloud, what you're describing is right along that same path of and there's decisions there. And that, to me, is what you're describing as well. Like those two go right hand in hand. So,
and I know we're diverging a little bit here, kind of state of Xbox thing. So maybe we won't have to cover that at the 6-month point like we used to do every year. The other thing is, where it's converging for me. I mean, this has just been a perfect storm of a bad week for Xbox, right? They report bad financials, then they get the deal blocked. Then, in my opinion, Brad Smith, Lulu Cheng Messervy, and Bobby Kotick threw a hissy fit temper tantrum, right, in for all the world to see. Then they release Redfall. Then Phil Spencer comes out and says some things that
could have been like a positive, but it becomes just another downward spiral piece.
Right. And then Phil Spencer does an interview and, says some things with some sound bites that didn't land great with people. That's not even like the console war people. I mean, I think there are Xbox people who heard those sound bites and were like, I don't know that speaks to me and resonates with me as a gamer. So, one of the things, and then for me, kind of the thing that made me feel comfortable with my decision is, a couple days after, a few days after Redfall. By the way, Pete Hines, who is in charge of publishing at Bethesda, we haven't heard a peep from as far as Redfall is concerned. But, then I think the Friday after Redfall releases, the word comes out that Microsoft has a hot shot kind of, who was the O.J. Simpson lawyer? I forget the guy's name.
Shapiro,
yeah. So, the defense, no, he was the prosecution, wasn't he, or was he the defense?
Yeah, no, all I could think of was a Seinfeld version of him. Yeah.
Right. If the gloves don't fit, you must quit. So by the Friday, we hear that Microsoft has like a lawyer like this for the appeal for the CMA. And I'm kind of like, in a week's time, you guys went out and got a lawyer to overturn the CMA thing. But in multiple years' time, you haven't figured out your internal processes by which you greenlight a game launch. And I'm like, that says to me an upended set of priorities, right? That just bugged me. So here we are. But I canceled my game, and I bounced out of my Game Pass subscription also, just to kind of part ways totally. You guys know when I do this, I go scorched earth. So
that's right.
Should be any surprise.
Have you sold your console yet?
Yes, I took it in. I took it down to GameStop Wednesday and got $4.25 for it. So I let Microsoft borrow $75 for the last 2.5 years. I'm discounting right how much I've given them for Game Pass, but yeah. I've
okay. I'm going to start the clock now of when you purchase it again. So
yeah. Let's see if I match the Red Ring of Death time, which was I think 3.5 years. I sold it in fall of 2010 and then bought Xbox One in February 2014.
I mean, It'll be interesting because in some ways you really don't need it because you have a PC, right? Like if there's when there are, right? I should say, like, when there are console exclusives, there are avenues for that.
Yeah, and talking about this on another podcast. I mean, when this whole thing was going down, all I could hear, and the reason why I asked if Swiss was going to be on tonight, all I could hear was me having to say to Swiss. I was imagining myself as like, Anakin Skywalker at the end of Return of the Jedi, having to tell Swiss, "You were right, Swiss, about me. You were right." And because, like he said, he's always said, "I don't know why you buy an Xbox because you could play those games on PC." But yeah. So it's been. I think one thing I mentioned, somebody else that I was talking to on another podcast mentioned, not somebody in the chat, but mentioned they're like, "Oh, but if you buy those games on PC, you're just participating in the Xbox ecosystem." I'm like, yes, but like, there's quantifiable math that shows a difference of how that's still a down check, right, or at least a departure for me if I go and buy that game on Steam, particularly on a sale. Versus me spending $180 a year on Game Pass, and in fact, being one of those customers over the last 2.5 years who that Spencer talks about, like where if I play a game in Game Pass and I play it multiple times and stick with it, I go ahead and buy it. Pay your developers. So, like I said, it's still enough of a backing out of the system for me.
All right, so I've been sitting on my hands because spot of I'm not necessarily found myself thinking, okay, so there are Redfall, Ravenlock came out, 3D kind of puzzle platformer game. It is Game Pass for me is hitting this kind of, it's hitting the HBO Max, Netflix aspect of it. Like, I don't need a big AAA giant blockbuster game. In some ways, like, I can take Netflix's Chris Hemsworth Extraction 2 direct-to-video aspect, right? Like, they are experiences that provide some enjoyment. They may not be genre defining. They may not necessarily be revolutionary, but they are. It is really interesting because I've found myself in this spot of, I just appreciate the content. I just want to, drop in, drop out, play a little bit here and there, experience a breadth of content rather than necessarily feel like it needs to be, it doesn't need to be a game of the year type of contender. It's me browsing the channels and finding out something that's on and watching it. And that Game Pass this week, which I think before was the first time where I really kind of stopped and thought, I'm okay if there's not a great game, because as long as there's just games, it gives me something different, something new to play. I say that as somebody who has a PC, who has a Switch, who has a PlayStation 5, right? I have options of playing other things, but it started to kind of, I moved it into a spot where it hasn't been before, in this kind of like, it's my, turn it on as background. It's not necessarily appointment gaming, but it is kind of casual gaming.
And that's the thing. And so first of all, let me say, I think both of those in a couple times. So, so it might be good if you get a break to dial back in. Dangerous from a competitive perspective is, that feeling of like the content there is. I hate to use the term because I don't want you to feel like I'm weaponizing it. That it's background noise, that's hard, right? That creates a questionable, like, competitive stance against other, right, forces in the market. So, but I think, like I said, I think both things are, from my perspective, like, other people got in the pool. I didn't jump until it was day and date and on PC. And that's because what I was interested in like Forza, the really big drum beats that were going to be there, and that I would have access to without necessarily plunking down $70 like that day, right, to get in the pool. So, like I said, I think for me, for my barometer, it was the right time. But I certainly understand, right, everybody else's consumption model and methodology, and I think Xbox needs, right, both types, right, to make a go at it.
Yeah, no, I think that it's both vectors are very viable. It just provides a nice discussion. So, and a nice discussion is what we've had here in 2 games over the last 45 minutes or so. So we've got, as we were talking about Game Pass and kind of what is there and kind of the browsability and consumption of it, there's a game that I downloaded, but I did not get a chance to play. It's coming out. It's on PC on Game Pass, coming out on Switch and Xbox in another 2 weeks, 3 weeks or so. But Tao, you had a chance to play it. This is Cassette Beats. This is a Pokemon-like, but with a little more nuance and, let's say, evolution to it.
The same leading up to it before I heard about it. But I graphics. I thought there was a fusion type of gameplay aspect like that before in an older Pokemon game, but I can't remember exactly. I don't know if it was exactly that or if it was some other kind of fusion of abilities or something like that. So.
Yeah, I don't. Not in the same way. Not that I remember. But
yeah,
right. So, and this is one where I don't know how much time you've gotten into it, but reading some of the reviews, like a poison type may also, there's extra layers of the different kind of type attacks, right? Like fire and water, but then water creates steam, which can heal you as well. Or there's secondary, advances there.
Yeah, it's a little bit more nuanced like that, which I haven't seen that too much. They kind of noted to it or alluded to it during the gameplay. I just talked when I'm going around the main town talking to people, but I haven't actually seen that yet. But it looks like it can get pretty deep if you want to, if you want to. I've been maybe 3 hours so far, so I'm just still at the very beginning where I'm kind of at the point where I can actually get away from that kind of main town that you start off in. So that's kind of nice. And the other kind of nice thing about this is it has a pretty interesting story. I don't want to give anything out because it's kind of, I thought it was pretty interesting. Nothing nothing new or revolutionary, but other than, just set beast chat or anything. So that's kind of cool. So, although I will say the last Pokemon wasn't too bad, the story wise. So
as someone, you finished the last Pokemon, Violet and Scarlet. Is this scratching a similar itch for you? Is this become your new Pokemon kind of go-to, or is it not quite hitting that same spot for you?
I'm definitely going to keep playing because there was another game. What was it? Temtem that came out not too long ago. Oh, actually, I think it was last year. Which I started playing, but I don't know. I couldn't get into that one all too much. This one, I've actually, I'm sticking with and kind of keeping going. I think more because of the story than anything. Just it's pretty interesting. I mean, I like the gameplay too, and that's pretty cool. But I can't remember what it was about Temtem that I think it was too like old school Pokemon for me. This is it's kind of old school Pokemon, but it's kind of evolving. I can't say that word. It's evolving kind of the gameplay too, where there's a little bit more elements to it, and there's some little things like you actually have like a run, like you have a run button or animation, but there's actually stamina to it, and then there's other abilities where you can like fly and stuff like that without having to use like your beast while doing that. So it's kind of cool, just like little different things like that. So
I think it might be Coromon was also one that came out last year, which was very kind of a GBA type of one,
okay.
but very
I never played that one.
Temtem had a little bit other nuance to it too. So is this this seems like a great kind of cloud, streaming one. Is it streamable yet at this point, or is it still only PC?
I But no, I believe it's only on PC right now. Yeah, you can't even stream it. Yeah, because I think I was looking at that on my Xbox at one point. I was like, oh, I don't see it in here. I thought it was out on Game Pass, and then I realized it's only PC, just strictly PC Game Pass. And then the other thing is too, you can play couch co-op. You can't really play online co-op. You can a little bit through.
Yes, and but if you are listening, we should edit this, and it should be just fine.
Yeah, we're gonna actually need to take a pause and the live stream. I don't know whether it's YouTube or Discord that's screwing up. So, but before we get into the news, we should definitely try and break, and we'll try and get back quick enough. The live stream episode doesn't break on YouTube, so it's all still one file. But yeah, if you guys could drop from the call, and then I'll drop the Discord call. And
Sounds
then
good.
All right. See you guys in a minute.
You'll join? Yep.
Wait a second, I got my video up here in a second. What happened? There we go.
Game Logic, for the sake of time, do you have a lot to say on both Modern Warfare and Sins of the Solar Empire, or do you want to pick one to talk about?
Nope. We can do Call of Duty is fine.
Yeah, before it's
No data going out, but I'm only at 6% CPU utilization, so I don't think it's a compute problem on my end. It must be it not reaching the terminating point on the other side. So I'm recording locally, so we should just go with what we have, and if I have to upload video, then we can do that.
good idea.
Okay. We want to head back in, or
Yep. No, we've been live the whole time.
Great. So. No problem. Well, it's good to know how the sausage is made. So we'll see how often we lock up here. But so for the sake of time, we're going to come back here and hit our some news stories, and then wrap up with a couple other quick hits on games. So if you've been sticking with us or have been watching after the fact, welcome back, and we'll see how we go. But a little bit of a technical hiccup is a perfect segue into our first news story here. This week, Game Logic, you and I have both played this game. This is Marvel's Midnight Suns from 2K and Firaxis. This coming week, the Xbox One and PlayStation 4 editions are released, but we got the news that the Switch version has been canceled. Now, I'm not surprised at this. Like, watching it run on a PlayStation 5, and I have thought, how are they going to, what is this going to look like? How are they going to run this? So you've got the first news story here, Game Logic, in terms of Phyrexis killing the Switch version ahead of release.
No, and I don't think I need to say much more than that. I think you covered it. I think, what I talked about in our last segment when I talked about kind of where Xbox is going from here on out, I think this, to me, is the biggest extraction out of this is it's the cautionary tale. So this week we get the Asus ROG Ally announcement, which is going to come on the 11th of May. Able to drive the content there, or they've been unable to get the price down. And so, the ROG Ally is coming out a little bit higher priced than the Steam Deck. And what I've been telling everyone is I wouldn't just assume that every PC game is going to just work. It works on the Steam Deck because Valve tests all of the games, and then they tell you the ones that they've tested and they certify them, right? They stand by the performance of the ones that they've tested. I'm like, I don't know that that's happened for these handhelds. And here we have, a game that was targeted for the Nintendo Switch. Now these devices are coming out with more hardware resources than we think, right, that the Switch has, but there's still hardware resources that are significantly less than what's going to be on a desktop PC at a time when desktop PCs are struggling, right, with some game content, right, predominantly around the fact that, most developers are coding games wanting 16 gigabytes of VRAM, right, and NVIDIA is putting out cards with 8 gigabytes of VRAM. Very expensive cards with 8 gigabytes of VRAM. My 3080 Ti only has 12. Right. So I don't know, man. I would just, interesting that this gets canceled right before the first of these kind of major brand name. And, and there's a chance that where we're going to go is that all the usual suspects are now going to come out with gaming handhelds, right? Lenovo, HP, Dell, right? Alienware. So I would just maybe hold on, right, and see how these things go before, people just jump in the pool who are not accustomed to living that early adopter lifestyle, right, that other people are.
Right. Yeah, no, I there's no the Steam Deck certified aspect of those is not going to be the same. There's not that. And without a whole lot of consistency in terms of application and software support there as well. So let's move on to the next news story here. Game Logic, you are back on the mic in terms of we've got just over a month before Diablo 4's release. And so we're going to be getting some news here.
Yeah, so just a quick hit. The story out last week, apparently sometime this week, the week of, and I can't remember if Blizzard will be doing some live stream where it reveals, the 10th, so this Wednesday at 7 p.m. British Standard Time. It says 11 a.m. PDT, so 1 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time on Twitch and YouTube. They'll be putting out more of kind of one of the burgeoning questions around Diablo 4, which is, what do these seasons mean? What is the battle pass? How do the cosmetics stack? So, stay tuned for that if you're kind of interested. Again, I personally think the way Diablo 3 worked was not really meeting the expectation of like a battle pass that you paid for. And of course, you didn't really pay, right? The seasons just rolled, but you were able to participate.
That's right. Yes. So stay there and finish up with your last news story. For the sake of our technical hiccups, we'll throw it back to you, and then Tao, you can wrap us up with the last news story here.
Yeah, this is just another quick hit. Steam search bar just got a lot better. So this is mainly that Valve had noticed that people were typing into the search bar things like genres or tags or developer or publisher names or other pieces of metadata. And so they have actually indexed the Steam catalog for that. And so theoretically, you can go in there and type in Firaxis, and you'll get back all of the hits that are by the Firaxis developer. So I don't know what would happen if you do something like type in like 2K. Whether it's going to return 500 names out of the database. I don't know, but you should feel free to experiment with that, and hopefully, more and more. The unfortunate thing is, this is kind of what you have to do to make Steam at all usable from a discovery perspective. So hopefully, it will serve some people in good stead.
Yeah, the ability for genre searching is certainly beneficial. All right, Tao, one last aspect here, and we're moving. It's still related to game content, but after big news of the Mario movie and the success of hitting over $1 billion, we get a new animated series coming from last year's indie darling, Vampire Survivors. So what's the new story here?
Yeah, some cross media entertainment here. So Pinnacle, I guess that's how you say it, Pinnacle, had announced that it'll be working with an entertainment firm, Story Kitchen, which has Dimitri Johnson, which is a co-producer of the Sonic Hedgehog film franchise, and Derek Kolstad, who is credited as the writer and creator of John Wick, along with Mike Goldberg, which I guess he's just part of the company because they don't mention what else he's done. They'll be creating an animated series, and just they have a quote from Luca Galante, from the founder of Pinnacle. He says, "The most important thing in Vampire Survivor is the story. So it's a dream come true to see what started as a little indie game I made on my weekends come to life as an animated TV show. It's also great partnering with experienced and talented people to make the show." I don't remember any kind of story within Vampire Survivor when I played it, because you kind of just get thrown into the the levels and you're just fighting hordes of monsters. I guess I've never seen any kind of lore or anything, even anything like that you can kind of find. I guess really the only thing is kind of the characters you can pick. There's a little blurb on them, I think, is the only bit of lore.
There's a
I guess
little bit of lore there with the characters.
Yeah.
And maybe there's, I haven't played it enough where if there's books that you unlock or discover along the world that kind of open up some lore, but it also is, it could be all kinds of things, right? There's just enough there to hang your hat on something, but not enough that it kind of shoehorns you into telling a certain story. So they could go lots of directions with it.
Yeah, I mean, and I think I've seen mentioned in other places that he was kind of inspired, by Castlevania, back in the day. Obviously, you can kind of tell that with the graphics and just kind of the enemies and stuff like that, and some of the weapons even. But I just hope it's not just because there's already a Castlevania animated series, I think, on Netflix, I believe. It's just not kind of a rehash of that. So hopefully they can, pull it together and have something original. It's not just a rehash. I mean, there are a lot of cool powers and stuff within that world. So if they can, I can see them maybe making it like a Muso type of animated show where there's just hordes of stuff and just people doing all kinds of powers and stuff, clearing the way. But I don't know. Like I said, I've never seen a story, but it looks like the people they're working with, the entertainment firm is obviously talented. So hopefully they can pull something together.
All right. Well, speaking of pulling together, let's pull together the last segment here as we head out. We've got a few more games to talk about. I am going to skip my Street Fighter demo. I've been playing some of the Street Fighter 6 demo. I guess I'll come back to it. I'll talk about it here. But first, realistically, what I've spent most of my week playing is some more Honkai Star Rail. So, which has been really enjoyable. But Tao, you've been playing another mobile game here. What is Baseball 9?
Yeah, actually, I just had to look it up to see when it was released, and it was actually back in 2018. But it's a mobile game I'm playing on my Android phone, and it's a free-to-play game. It's just a baseball game, kind of chibi characters that you control. They're made-up teams. It's not it's not like they don't have a major league license or anything like that. So, and then you can actually go in and name your own team, and along with all the players on your team if you'd like. I think I only renamed one just for myself, just to customize my own guy. But it's almost basically just Wii Sports Baseball, where you just do the batting and the hitting, and then fielding is pretty much automatic. You can like when somebody catches it on your team, you can like hit the base on the little touch screen if you want, but it'll automatically do it too. But sometimes, like if there's somebody, like first, third, and you want to like throw it home, you can just throw it home instead of having the AI. A lot of times I just see the AI just throwing it directly to second, but you can do what you want. And that's pretty much it. It's pretty simple. You can upgrade your characters just using the in-game currency. So, you got to play a lot of games to kind of level that stuff up. Or you can buy, like packs of like diamonds or whatever I think it is in there to use to do that also. It's just single player. There's no multiplayer, at least not right now. I'm assuming there's never going to be since it's a few years old now, or more than a few years old, or maybe they'll do it in the future. But you just kind of work your way. I'm in like the rookie actually, so just fun little quick little baseball game. You do play like all 9 innings, so it's it's a little bit longer than just like pretty simple interface, and pitching and hitting is just the buttons. All you have to do is hit the button. I'd recommend it. It's a quick little nice little game that you can spend a little bit of time on. Not as deep as like obviously MLB The Show, but a little. Maybe that's why I'm enjoying it so much, because I can actually hit the ball in this game, unlike in MLB The Show this year. It's my off year, I guess, for MLB The Show. So that's I'll go back to it, obviously, the show, and play that. But it's kind of a nice little time waster if I'm waiting for at the store or something, or waiting for my car or whatever. If I have a few minutes. So I'm enjoying it.
Nice. Yeah. And it looks like it had its most recent update just in the middle of April of this year. So it's still getting updates, even being a 5-year-old game.
Yep.
So speaking of easy controls, I am only good with a few. I am only confident with a few characters. I don't even know that I would call myself good with a few characters, but I am confident in terms of their. I really know like a few. I think I'm excited about it, in part because, one, the actual Street Fighter combat is really solid. It's, some of the pieces in 5 still make their return. There's, some of the charges that happen. I have no idea how to play some of these characters, but that's kind of half of the fun, is figuring out some of that. There's the traditional mode, which is your, multiple button inputs. And then there is what they're calling a modern mode, which is a single button to do your special attacks, basically, right? Like a single button that does throw a fireball, or if you push up and the single button, you're going to do the dragon punch. It allows you to pull off, or not even pull off, right? To implement some of the special attacks without having to pull off the button combination, which I think makes it kind of approachable for casual players. Assuming that modern mode is not going to be something that will be allowed within any type of competitive play, or even online play, right? Unless they kind of section it off, like there is a modern mode queue and a traditional queue. But where modern mode really comes in is, so Street Fighter 6 has this world tour mode, and the demo gives you a chance to play with the world tour. You create a character. The demo does not save your progress in world tour, so you can kind of it doesn't take long. It takes less than, I don't know, if you burn through it takes less than a half hour to kind of get to the end of the demo of world tour. But basically the conceit of world tour is that you are moving around Metro City, right, with Final Fight and Mike Hagar as the mayor, and you have the ability to challenge other NPCs throughout the world, simply walking up to them and pushing the fight button, and you'll kind of cross arms and jump into a battle. And then there are kind of random encounters, as there are different kind of gangs or enemies that will kind of charge at you when they see you, and you're building up rep in different ways. So there is this, kind of world building, character building aspect to this. And what it seems like is you'll be going through and connecting and meeting with all of the other Street Fighter, like the traditional Street Fighter characters. That you start with, I don't know. You start with one of the new guy, whoever the cover guy is. You start with him and his move sets, but then your first Street Fighter that you're going to meet is Chun-Li, and as you meet her, you can add her move sets in as well. And so, as you're building your character, you're adding other move sets in, and the modern mode there is actually beneficial in terms of, well, it keeps the mode approachable. Like, I have no idea how to pull off guys move sets, but having the modern mode means that I don't need to. I just need to know that I push one button and I'm going to get that. So I found it both incredibly goofy to walk up to, let's say, a businesswoman in a suit on her cell phone and sitting by the subway and challenge her to a fight and suddenly just jump into a fight. Or walking around the equivalent of Times Square in New York, and I leveled my character up enough to take on a mime, take on a couple street performers, just some random tourist in a backpack, But it is interesting, the character you build, it really has a lot of customization in terms of height and arm length, and all those things play into kind of your hitbox as a character as well, that your reach, or your height, your movement, your speed, all of those do play in, because I played it twice, made two different characters, kind of one much larger and one kind of small and mobile, without much of a reach, and had to get in close. And there were some fights taking on people, where I only went up to their chest, and having to approach that differently than somebody who had a longer reach. And so it does end up creating some different game strategies there as well. But what it seems to do is, I don't think it's going to be kind of the narrative of running story to it in the world tour. It could be enjoyable to play, right? There is a story mode in the traditional one, but it is more of the traditional arcade, where you're moving through a series of champions, and kind of, not necessarily a full-on story, but a small little stories for each of the characters is what the story mode versus this world tour. So it's goofy. It's kind of fun, but it also is like, it gives me, as somebody who is a casual Street Fighter fan, it gives me that kind of fun Street Fighter fix without having to spend hours upon hours of mastering movesets. And what I'll probably do is, I'm pretty sure I'm going to end up picking this up, surprising myself even. But I think what it will end up doing is, I could play the World Tour mode as kind of a casual piece, and spend time kind of focusing in on a few characters in the traditional Street Fighter aspect as well, and play that. So that's Street Fighter 6. The demo is out on PC, Xbox, and PlayStation 5 at this point. So if the goofiness of taking on a mime in the middle of Times Square is something that, there's 15 minutes of fun right there. So that's Street Fighter 6. Let's take a tonal shift from random civilian fights to taking on Modern Warfare 2. So game logic. Given the previous discussion around setting the Xbox to the side, I'm assuming that also means that your time with Halo Infinite is set to the side, which then gives you a little more time with your other rotational game here with Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. So how's that been for you? It looks like you're playing both on PlayStation 5 and on PC.
I have been, yeah, and so just one comment on the technical problems in this issue. Other people in this area are having problems with uploading and video streaming, so there may be something going on regionally with network connectivity to YouTube. And people are reporting, live channels not loading, etc. I have been playing on PlayStation 5 and on PC. I was playing on PlayStation 5, since I got the FV43U Aorus monitor that I mentioned last week. I have, and it sits on a desk. It's a lot easier for me to play with mouse and keyboard there, specifically for Call of Duty. I've actually taken my 4K television and I've moved it out of here and taken it upstairs for the family to use. Since I have, it's a 4K capable monitor down here, but I usually play Call of Duty even on PS5 at 1440p or 1080p. So I've been having a good time with that. It's got the hooks in me. It's just for, I still have weapons unlocks left. There's a lot to do in Season 3. I haven't gotten any of the new modes, but there are 2 new maps. There is a lighthouse map, which I kind of like. There's also a weird, I think it's called Blackout or Black Site map, which I still haven't totally. And if the weapon provides those 2 modes, it won't allow you to scope. I also went on there with a Lockwood that was armed with I think either a thermo or an NVG, and when you do that and you scope in, it's just black because you already have NVGs on. So I had to kind of go in and root around in the loadouts and fix that. But yeah, I've been having a good time with that on both PS5 and PC. And the one mention I will make of Sins of a Solar Empire, I've been trying to play that. I've played through one tutorial, but I keep getting pulled back to Call of Duty. So there we are. Hopefully I'll get a little more Sins of the Solar Empire time in during this week.
All right. Any final thoughts, gentlemen, before we head out? Thanks for the update, Game Logic, on the technical issues. So if you've been watching us or if you've been in and out, thank you for sticking with us in terms of our hiccups here. Any final comments, gentlemen? All right. So this has been episode 298. Join us again next week. For myself, this has been the Enough to Keep there. Good night.
Tell